Back, and we're going to be starting our segment 3, and I thought before we start out we would have a
yes.
start with a refreshment, fresh coffee.
All right. There you go.
Thank you, Your
Thank
Majesty. To the we the people. Well, as I had mentioned previous, Your Royal Majesty, so much information in that first 2 segments that we covered, really. And we could pause right there. However, we have so much more valuable content to go through, and we're starting with now highlighting your last 6 royal decrees.
Right.
And I wanted to start off this segment. Again, I want to welcome everyone back and thank you for being here. With Royal Decree number 220, and I'm going to read this here so I don't miss a word because every word is so significant. All social, financial assistance, guaranteed incomes, retirement income, income supplements, etc., are to be sent directly to Canadian National Benefit Bank Account 0, which is in all caps, third party serving as service delivery provider, 0 deductions of any kind. Well, I'm certain that this royal decree certainly raised a few eyebrows of many. I'd really like to explain this and go through this in a much deeper way for the we the people, Your Royal Majesty. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. First of all, I think I have to agree to also, before we start, thank you and greetings to all of our QRTRV News contributors, and congratulations to Miss
Yes.
of the state of Florida for having been bestowed the honors and privileges of being an honorary Canadian national. So congratulations, welcome to the family, and thank you for your service to the Kingdom of Canada and with the people of the world. Thank you very kindly for that.
Thank you.
And going to the Royal Decree number 70220. This is pertaining to your social, financial assistance, guaranteed incomes, retirement incomes, income supplements. What this really is all about, this royal decree, was to ensure that we the people receive every penny that is owed to them, that they are entitled to, without any third party taking a cut, scheming off the top, and scheming it even more with their old system way of doing things, where they would hire third party companies or create a third party company and use that, and then that company receives service fees. Well, in this day and age where technology is at your fingertips, we don't need third party companies, charitable or for profit, to be used as a delivery system. The money simply comes from the National Treasury, the master account of the Kingdom of Canada, National Treasury, and sent directly to the we the people's bank account, the beneficiary's account. 0 deduction of any kind, 0. And this is also to eliminate any wastage as far as the we the people's money. Ironically, the old system that had access to all kinds of technologies when it came to financial delivery had to create multiple agencies, had to hire, for example, non-profit organization to deliver the benefits or services to those, for example, who were in the disaster zones. During Fiona, for example, the storm Fiona, they had Red Cross going around instead of the government of the day's workers going and doing the work of Red Cross. That's what you were hired to do, not to farm out your job to a third party who then takes a cut to deliver the service that you are being paid to do as servants of the people. So this royal decree ends aristocracy. And also, it prevents the select few, not so kind family members or caretakers or those with powers of attorneys who divert the beneficiaries' funds, be it children, youth, or seniors, or vulnerable members of our brothers and sisters in the communities. That diverts these types of financial assistance to their own bank accounts. It also holds accountable those at the national treasury level, because they have to account for every transfer they have made to the recipient. That removes corruption, money laundering, and ensures that the amount fully awarded to the beneficiaries received, and they don't have to go to a third party. It goes straight into their bank account.
Your Majesty, would you agree as well that this royal decree also brings honor, respect, and dignity back to the we the people and takes away tyranny? Because is it not true that there were third-party organizations that were actually determining who was getting the benefit and causing oppression?
Correct. Exactly that. That is why I had mentioned that this eliminates the select few who would divert the funds into their bank accounts. And yes, those charitable organizations who were hired, paid to deliver the service, and picked and choose who and what amount each one received. Some didn't receive the benefits at all, and yet it was budgeted to be given to the beneficiaries who were part of, for example, the Hurricane Fiona disaster assistance. So with this one, it removes the bias, yes, personal or political or any other biases. And definitely, as I said, it removes their ability to launder money, you know, that brown envelope. And removes the re-victimization from that equation. Because when I was in the Maritimes, what I had observed during the Fiona is that the charitable organization hired to deliver the service, the assistance to the victims of Fiona, they would go into a motel or a hotel, and they would set up a an office there in one room, or the hallway of or the lobby of the hotel or the motel. And they would make we the people who have just lost their homes travel 3, 5, sometimes 6 hours, plus make them line up just to be given $250 or $500 of assistance. Some were not even awarded that assistance. You see what I mean when this royal decree eliminates the re-victimization of those who are already going through the disaster or have just gone through losing their homes, losing their belongings, and making them travel and making them beg for the money that they're entitled to begin with. It's their money.
Mm-hmm.
So that eliminates that third-party kakistocracy, third-party contract delivery service, when we the people's government, the servants, were supposed to be doing this job, but instead they farmed it out and they sat there sitting pretty wherever their offices were.
And meanwhile, many of the people, some of the days wasn't very pleasant.
Yeah.
But they were standing out, waiting in line for
Correct.
hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And many of them, we hear the stories, we were there present, which is so valuable, why you have a mobile government team, by the way, Queen Romana, that we saw firsthand. They put people into more suffering and more diminishment. It was
Correct.
really abhorrent what they did.
Yes, it's re-victimization. You know, it's that system where if someone was going to report a rape case, and then having to relive the rape situation so that someone there could type up the notes. Meanwhile, the rape victim is being re-victimized, having to relive the horror of being raped, instead of being immediately given assistance. Just because they needed their paperwork, the bureaucratic stuff. They need those paperwork as a reason to exist and to keep their jobs. So that Royal Decree 220 eliminates all third parties, all kakistocracy. No one can skim off we the people's benefits. Every dollar, every penny goes straight into their bank account, and the National Treasury is held to account for every penny dispersed.
Thank you for that decree, Your Majesty.
You're welcome.
So we're going to move on to Royal Decree 70221. Further financial forensic audits on all mother accounts, expense accounts, discretionary accounts, etc., and in bracket, onshore and offshore accounts.
Yes. Well, unbeknownst to many of you, some may have an idea, but your governments, the old system, yeah, had investment accounts offshore. Offshore meaning outside the kingdom. And as we know, sometimes, depending on which continent you go to, money tends to develop wings overnight. Thankfully, to the advanced technology that we now have, We have the records of all money spent going in and out. And we are able to trace, the forensic auditors are able to trace all the intricacies of the interconnectedness of how, for example, 555 million that was, for example, supposedly delivered to Haiti, and all of a sudden only managed to build how many houses? Six
right?
houses. So all of the monies sent to Haiti, supposedly transferred to Haiti, and made detours to certain politicians' accounts, certain bureaucrats' accounts, certain foundations, charitable or not, private or not, those are all traceable, or particular military accounts. All of that is traceable.
And dead people.
And where they were spent and how they were spent. So this allows, this financial forensic audits allows the third-party independent forensic auditors. Forensic auditors are those who audit the accountants, the auditors of the auditors. And they know all of the select few accountants' secret sauce in terms of protecting or shall we say, ensuring that a particular client receives more refund than the other client, and all of the monies that they could have, shall we say, benefited from using certain loopholes of the income tax, blah, blah, blah. That was the old system. But we have records of those. We have access of those. That's what this forensic audit is for.
Romana, is that called creative accounting?
That's creative accounting, yes. But when you have forensic auditors that can audit the auditors, all of those creative financings are all of a sudden out in the open and discovered.
Queen Romana, I also noticed number 10 is that it says here, publish the names of all head of departments, ministries, bureaus who were responsible for the kakistocracy and charge and prosecute these low energy individuals under natural law. Publish these findings on or before June 1, 2024.
And you've noticed, right? Because before they managed to hide, they managed to hide under the, it's privileged information, and you had to go to the highest whoever, right? And you had to fill out this form of freedom of information, blah, 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 to get that information. Because the old system was covering the corruption, the criminality, the money launderers. Under natural law, no one is sacred. If you diverted the we the people's money, for example, the 555 million that was meant to be used in Haiti for building homes, and you only built 6 homes. I think the we the people deserve to know what happened to the 555 million and who were the people in charge at that time, and who released them. All of that is traceable. And never before was it that, or the old system would never publish the names of the corrupt individuals, because they were, not all, but majority were getting the brown envelopes. So I can guarantee you that 555 billion that was meant for Haiti many years ago, and only they managed to show 5 houses, even if the houses were made of platinum, I think they would still have been able to build more than 6 homes with that 555 million. So you can see how many people perhaps received brown envelopes or had their bankers do creative financing by diverting those funds to different supposed causes, right? And in the end, ended up in someone's family private foundation.
And I noticed that you've also had these forensic audits go back to in 10-year increments for a significant period of time. So you're going to be going back, and they're all retroactive July 1, 1970.
Yes, because that's when the capistocracy began to happen. That's when we the people really was officially put into slavery by the corporation system. And using the corporation, the Admiralty law, they were able to do the creative financing and creative accounting. So now, and this is the very first time that forensic audits have been requested to go as far and as deep as going back to 1867 and increments by 10 years. So you can really see that, say, for example, from the beginning all the way to now, nothing has changed when you look at the old system. And that the only thing that was consistent also was the re-victimization of the we the people, while the select few elites were benefiting themselves with the natural resources funds that were being extracted, the natural resources being sold offshore or to other countries, and the monies then extracted for different reasons, and we the people were given, they were lucky if they receive crumbs from the natural resources. Meanwhile, you had politicians and bureaucrats who came in, let's say not even millionaires, and then came out after 4 years, 8 years, or 12 years in politics, multimillionaires on a public servant salary.
Exactly. Any closing comments to that decree, Your Majesty, before we move on to number 222?
This really actually holds to account, including those monies that were paid to builders, construction owners, general contractors who received money and never finished projects. Some of you may have taken or paid attention to some projects that all of a sudden were revived and forgotten for 9 years. All of a sudden, they're finishing a project that's been sitting there for many, many years. So this really holds everyone to account in terms of what they had done to the we the people's natural resources and all the funds, how they have allocated it, the projects, and the individual companies and or corporations who were given those funding, given those contracts. And that goes under economic sabotage. If you receive millions upon millions as a general or subcontractors to build a project and you never finished it, guess what that is? Economic sabotage. And you wouldn't want to know under natural law what the ramifications are. Or maybe you already know that's why some of you are all of a sudden reviving the 9-year-old projects that you seem to have forgotten. Just saying.
And some of those projects are actually several decades, Your Majesty,
Correct.
that have been revitalized, just happen out of the blue. So thank you very much for that very, very important and significant royal decree. So we're going, thank you. So we're going to move forward now to the next royal decree, 70, number 222, Safety, Security, and Sovereignty of the Kingdom of Canada, Prohibition, Cancellation, and Nullification of all cooperation with the World Health Organization, WHO, United Nations, UN, World Economic Forum, WEF, in the Kingdom of Canada. This is huge.
Yes. Well, thank you, Your Excellency. So this particular royal decree was really, again, to reinforce the very fact that after many, many years of the bioweapon, let's start with the World Health Organization. Most of you who have been following and on our channels, my main channels especially, may recognize that several days ago, I think I published that, where the United Nations or World Health Organization, pardon me, accepted defeat to their proposed pandemic international treaty, where had it been granted by members countries, it would have given this transnational organization that was not even funded by the we the people. I believe 75% or 70% was privately funded. I remember the previous head of World Health Organization, I think, where she was a lady from China, originally with Chinese ancestry, where she said she had 30% of funding guaranteed by the member countries, and she had to take her hat and beg for funding for that remaining 70%. Well, we all know that regardless of whether you're asking for funding to do research or to do a particular humanitarian work, whomsoever gave the funding will always say, I would like you to come up with this particular result. How you get there is up to you, as long as at the end of the day, the result is this. So it was already compromised in that aspect, where 70% of its funding was coming from private individuals or corporations. So meaning you had 70% of whoever was funding that, and I'm sure you guys can research who was funding that 70%, had a major sway in the decision making, in the policy makings of World Health Organization, in fear that they were going to lose their funding the following year. That's how it works. That's how research grants are given. You can have any results you want as long as you have the money. You'll always have researchers who will agree with your narrative. Your op-eds, you'll always have the select few that are willing to take any amount of money to come up with a narrative that suits the funders' interest. So that's number one for the World Health Organization. One of the reasons I had nullified any and all cooperation with the Kingdom of Canada, and the very fact that they advocated for the bioweapon. Then you had the United Nations. Well, the United Nations, if you look around, they are good as nothing in terms of has not been able to prevent any harm to civilians where there is military conflict. Because they have a system, or they had a system, whereby one country could veto any proposals that did not suit their interest, political, economic, or otherwise, their hegemony, could veto any proposals proposed by we the people around the world via their representatives at that table. So they are useless, corrupt, and inutile. And we the people, on a yearly basis, each country, we're having to pay for their membership. In order to keep the United Nations operating and maintained, the member countries had to pay membership fees.
Was that 2% of their GDP?
That's the NATO.
Okay.
But they have supposed complex calculations where they base their amount from each country. And then, of course, the World Health Economic Forum. Many of you now are learning what really this has done pertaining to, again, the bioweapon. So many of you are also aware that this is based in Switzerland. And Pascal Najadi, the son of the founder, co-founder of WEF, has been disclosing information pertaining to the nefarious, as he allegedly said, the nefarious works of WEF and the political interests of those who were part of it. So we don't need these foreign interference in our kingdom.
And Queen Romana, also in this royal decree, any and all diplomatic immunity and visas previously afforded, nullified and voided.
Absolutely, yes. Correct. Many also are aware, outside North America, by the way, and outside the Western world, many are aware of the atrocities committed by those who have the United Nations credentials. The misuse and abuse of those credentials are well documented overseas. Those credentials also, not all the time, but were used to human traffic, to traffic illegal drugs, because of course they were traveling with blanketed immunity, so no one was able to touch their diplomatic pouch. So they were trafficking also, as I said, not all, but the select few were trafficking illegal drugs, biohazardous materials, trafficking children, and live organs, yes, human organs. And it's not just the UN, World Health Organization also. As I said, not all. But if you do your research and you go outside the Western world, you will find evidence of these abuses and misuse of their privilege. So that is why I've nullified and removed all of their credentials, and they are prohibited from doing any business in the Kingdom of Canada.
And I also believe that the Klaus Schwab of WEF recently resigned, whatever that means.
I'll drink to that. Well, many of you are aware of what resignation really is all about. What's the code? Decode that.
Many resignations. Yes, many resignations. Anything further that you'd like to add? I mean, this is such a powerful decree.
Well, this really, I wanted to just in a short and concise way of describing this royal decree. It's removing all of, if not all, majority of those that interfered and committed, as I said, not all, but the select few from these organizations, transnational organizations, intercontinental organizations, who have used and misused their privileges and used it to oppress and commit crimes. And we have watched how dysfunctional the United Nations has been and how useless it has been in protecting the vulnerable around the world. There's no, why give them so much of our country's money on a yearly basis? You're giving it to the imbeciles, to the incompetents. And some, as I said, committed crimes. Useless and dysfunctional because of their internal policies that, you know, if one of their permanent members wanted to veto, even if it had to do with bringing peace to the entire world, because one wanted to keep their hegemony intact, they would veto. So the whole world, the whole process was then all of a sudden, it came to a sudden halt. And then they had to go back again and redo their useless negotiations. Meanwhile, you have civilians going hungry, being killed for absolutely no reasons, other than you had politicians somewhere around the world or religious figures who did not agree with whatever principle, and therefore their religion or their politics should supersede everyone else's. So this is what has happened. They never serve we the people. They only serve themselves and their handlers, their puppeteers. And they use we the people's bank account as their ATMs. We the people's natural resources as their bank vaults. I mean, just look at what's happening next door. They can't even they can't even take care of their borders. And yet the whole world really has been crying for ceasefire. And what has been happening there? Playing politics all this time. So we have to remove all of these old system. As I said many, many years ago, dismantle World Health Organization, the UN, WEF, whoever else, World Trade Organization, because they have absolutely done nothing for humanity other than use humanity as their ATM. Yeah.
Incredible. Well, again, Your Majesty, I wanted to thank you for really standing alone as a leader and being the only one that stepped out and above and created the change that we the people we were asking for, but there was no one that was willing, that didn't compromise themselves in some way, some fashion, and didn't have the foundation of moral compass to make unpopular decisions. And you took so many bows and arrows and slingshots, and your name has literally been slung through the mud and then some, the only one, and you stood alone. And I wanted to thank you for separating yourself from the absolute masses. You know, it wasn't easy. I recognize it wasn't easy.
You're
And
welcome.
I wanted to thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's move on before I start bawling. Okay. So let's go to 70223 Royal Decree.
Okay.
And all of the royal decrees are massively significant, as I have mentioned many, many times.
Mhm.
But there are some decrees that stand out, and you spoke of this earlier. But I really want to go through this one in a little bit more detail for we the people to recognize, and for you to go through this again, Queen Romana, how few there really are of Homo sapiens. So let's go through this. All live Homo sapiens, living, breathing, blood-flowing Canadian nationals, baby girl, baby boy, lady, and man, born on this planet Earth are to be known as Indigenous, forthwith entitled equal share to all natural resources found in the Kingdom of Canada. Exceptions are robots, artificial intelligence, machines, clones. And I would like you to speak to why you included that last sentence in there and what that means for we the people.
Well, first of all, yes, as I had alluded to earlier, that peace has already been achieved. My royal decrees are written from 26D. Not a single person or individual or entity on this star system can sit down and write royal decrees without putting their biases to it and preferences. Because to be quite honest, a monarch who gives away everything back to we the people, where have you ever seen that?
Never.
Right? Protecting we the people instead of protecting the system, where have you ever seen that? Giving the control back to we the people instead of the system, where have you ever seen that? Now, going back to the living, breathing, blood-flowing Canadian nationals, baby boy, baby girl, man and ladies, born on this planet, manifested on this planet. I said earlier that if you're really in touch with the Grandmaster Creator, if you're really aligned, and you are those who profess to be of high spiritual, high energy being, you would want each and every living being to, in this case, specific to Homo sapiens. If your energy is clean, you will want to see each and every Homo sapien to live in an abundant, loving, and peaceful environment. Equal. That if you are of, say, for example, privileged, if you are coming from a privileged family, for example, living in a modest home, for example, having the privilege of eating seafood or lobster once or twice a week, would you, if your energies were clean and of higher vibration, would you not want everyone else to experience that? To taste the food that you have the privilege of eating, voluntarily, of course, you if they wanted to taste seafood that at this moment it'll cost them an arm and a leg to go and buy, right? If you are a leader that is of clean energy, higher vibration, would you not want all of your people, all of your ladies, men, baby boy, baby girl, to live abundantly, peacefully, and to be able to spend their time with their families, watching their children grow up, and our grandparents, our seniors, our ancestors, being able to spend their time with their grandchildren because they don't have to go and work at the age of 65 to help pay their rent. Would you not, as a leader, want the children to experience and grow up having both mom and dad at home? Would you not want to have children not have to go to a grocery store and look at their mom and dad and say, may I have this? And then the mom or the dad says, no, that's not in the budget. We cannot afford that. That's what my royal decrees are all about. So for those who try to analyze and study Queen Romana, you are out of luck. Because if you're studying me from your 3D dimensions of energy and understanding and experiences, you will not come close to even understanding why I wrote these royal decrees under natural law and giving back the power, the privilege, honor, and dignity to the we the people, especially our children and our ancestors. You won't, because you were programmed and your energies have not been cleansed from greed, jealousy, envy, and collecting material things and power, the love of power. I think there's a song, The Love of Power. Many have the love of power, but now the power of love is here. So these royal decrees fundamentally come from the power of love. 26D. So for those who try to analyze why a monarch would return, would nationalize the natural resources and give equal share to every national, it's unfathomable. It has never been done before. But then again, before, you didn't have Queen Romana in your timeline. So, if you're looking to Queen Romana as supposedly, based on your experiences, based on what you have viewed as what royalty should be, you have to go the opposite way. That's why you have these royal decrees. As I said, in your timeline, you didn't have Queen Romana before. And Earth 2.0 is 26D. You will notice that my royal decrees are being adapted worldwide. And there's no amount of rhetorics or discredit, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation will work. Because, as I said, this energy is 26D. And so this planet has already transmuted the 3D, and that is why now this planet, or in this case, this star system Earth, is adapting this, implementing it worldwide. Slowly but surely, different head of states are implementing these royal decrees. And peace was achieved only because we reverted back, not necessarily reverted back. Peace was achieved because we come from 26D, where everyone, the energy, the enslavement was removed by giving equal share, equal inheritance. Every Canadian national is inheriting their title, their ownership to our natural resources. By doing that, we remove enslavement, debt, enslavement, the energetic enslavement. Also, we remove people's karma in a way where some people had generational or ancestral karma, and even personal karma, where they were, have you ever noticed that some people would go up a certain level financially and then collapse and then back again? Those were energetic debts that their ancestors, part of the lineage that were passed along. This is why they say this is the last chance we have to transmute all of those energies and get rid of those energies. So that's how peace, and that's how we were able to go up, to ascend energetically and vibrationally, is by changing how we the people were, removing how we the people were enslaved. We'll remove that shackle. And of course, majority will have a very hard time understanding how someone simple as Queen Romana, able to devise a world liberating royal decree. It does not only apply to the Kingdom of Canada, it applies to every human, to every Homo sapien that is living, blood flowing, baby boy, baby girl, lady and man around the world. And also by the natural law itself that values every creation. And hence, remember, the Grandmaster Creator created all of us. If that was your father or mother or your parents, guess what? You're entitled to all of the inheritance they have left behind. Doesn't matter what your color, your size, your age, you're entitled to that inheritance. And this is what this is all about. It's not for the select few. It's for everyone. And that is how we've removed the enslavement, not only financially, but energetically from this planet, from this earth.
Huge.
And when you remove the financial burden that has been there since children were even born, for example, in America, because of their debt there that is so high, each child, I think the last figure I looked at, each child that is born inherits not wealth, but financial debt of 96,000. Just from being born, that child is already slaved. In the Kingdom of Canada, when we are finished with all the inventory and exploration and the calculation, tallying up all of our natural resources, each child will be born inheriting wealth. And the Kingdom of Canada is so vast, and we only have, 40 million granted because of the kakistocracy there with the numbers of the previous immigration system. So that's, remember, I've mentioned earlier that one province has an estimated oil 32 trillion reserves. That's just one, and that's just one resource. Now, when we're finished, as I said, when our national natural resource minister is finished with the exploration and creating the database, we will have a clear picture as to how wealthy each and every one of you in the Kingdom of Canada. Regardless of your age, you will have that equal share. And imagine the energy that is lifted, the pressure, the economic pressure, the psychological, emotional, and physical pressure that would be lifted from moms and dads across the kingdom, because they no longer have to go to work to feed their children. And also, key to this, another key to this royal decree, is those who have been, especially our ancestors, our seniors, who have had to choose between living, and not only just the seniors, but partners who have had to choose to stay with an abusive partner or spouse for financial reasons will now then be able to leave on their own. They'll be able to leave that partnership and live on their own, financially secured. They don't have to worry about where their next, how they're going to pay for their homes, how they're going to pay for their food. They don't have to ask permission from their spouse how they would like to spend their money. And knowing that every 6 months or every year, depending on how we are going to distribute all of those loyalty checks from your different natural resources, the mom and dads and the children, even, they will have their own money as Canadian nationals. So the mom or the dad, or together, they won't have to worry about how they're going to support their children, because the children themselves will have their own money, equal share. And many of you before were saying, how come Queen Romana, there was this guy who tried to supposedly analyze me. How come Queen Romana, as the queen, is giving away all of these natural resources? Well, it belongs to the we the people. And if you're coming from the energy, the frequency I'm coming from, you will have an understanding. But because you're not coming from that dimension, you will not have that understanding, because you're viewing me, you're trying to understand my royal decrees and my actions based on your experiences from the 3D. I do not come from the 3D. Hence, as the saying goes, you can try and understand Queen Romana until the cows come home or the bulls start walking backwards. You will not. This is why I said also before, I will not come down to your level. You must go up to my level. That's the only time you will have an understanding of why these royal decrees are here on this star system now, Earth 2.0.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. What that does for the well-being, the long-term economic well-being, wealth creation of the Kingdom of Canada and around the world. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So we're going to move forward now to the next royal decree.
Okay.
And this is royal decree with, again, 7 zeros. 224, prohibition of and an immediate cease and desist order, as well as cancellation and suspension of any and or all active programs, including research and development pertaining to the following: A, biological warfare enabling technologies; B, synthetic biological warfare technologies; C, bioengineered foods and drinks for consumption of Homo sapiens and all animal species in all forms; D, prohibition on imports and exports of all bioengineered foods and drinks in all forms for the consumption of Homo sapiens and all animals; and E, prohibition on manufacturing, trade, purchase, and sale of bioengineered foods, clothing, and drinks for consumption of Homo sapiens and all animal species and plants in all forms.
Yes. So what this royal decree really is alluding to is alluding to what has happened during COVID, the bio weapon. Now, with the understanding, many of you now have the understanding of how damaging the bioweapon was, that mRNA technology, the nanobots that was injected into many, many people's system. This is a continual, this is the extra level of protection for we the people. So removing the research, any types of research pertaining to this bioweapon, so biowarfare, really, okay? Those technologies, synthetic. So synthetic biological warfare, meaning you have a fake or a local, a replicated biological warfare, but because it's not biological, it's created from a lab. So it's synthetic. Remember that COVID, there is an actual virus, but when you look at the Lysol, can of Lysol, it's a bacteria that can be easily killed by a Lysol. Any one of you, and one time, 3 or 4 years ago, I created a video showing the Lysol container that listed the coronavirus bacteria in there, one of the bacteria that could be killed by Lysol. But when they replicate that bacteria in a lab, that's when the synthetic biological warfare technologies, that's what they have done. They replicated a natural occurring bacteria in nature, created that in a lab, and then patented it, which is actually unlawful. You cannot patent a nature. And that's discussion is for another day. And bioengineered foods. You now have many of those have now, depending on you go to the grocery store, you read labels. Some of the foods now, it says bioengineered foods. Well, you don't know what they've done there. What does that mean, bioengineered? Did you put nanobots in there? What did you inject to that? What did you do? What kind of lab created insects did you put in there as part of the ingredients? Just because they label it bioengineered, it doesn't mean it's something that is fully clean, sanitized. Ay, ay, ay. This one here prohibits that. And it not only prohibits the sale, trading, manufacturing of that, but the importation and exportation. It's simple. The principle behind that is simple. If it is dangerous for we the people of the Kingdom of Canada, why export it to other countries? If it is murder here, it's murder under natural law. It's murder in another country. So if you know that a food that is containing a particular ingredient is harmful to a baby boy or a baby girl or a lady or a man here, it'll be harmful in another country. Hence the prohibition to export or import. The same way, if you know it's harmful in Africa, why would it not be harmful here? The same thing with your clothes. They have placed nanobots in those clothing, eh? And you don't know what they do, other than when you wear those clothing, they start to go into your what?
Skin. Yeah.
Skin, because they're so tiny. It's like tinier than a dust. Smart dust. Some of them, they call it smart dust. They're so tiny, it's even hard to see with your naked eye. So that's what this Royal Decree 224, cease and desist order. So if you're in this industry, go find another one.
And again, that was an additional layer of safety, security, and protection for the kingdom, we the people of the Kingdom of Canada.
Correct.
Incredible. Anything further before we move on, Your Majesty?
Yes, and again, this goes back to when they say trust science. Learn from the bioweapons that they have injected away the people. That scam that they have done now, you see that millions of people have been killed, tens of millions of people, and 1 billion damaged. The divine beings, 1 billion, their DNA manipulated.
All right, well, we're going to move on, Your Majesty. So again, this next, all the royal decrees are very important, but again, this royal decree, which I had the privilege of reading to the we the people when it was decreed officially on May 29, 2024, this is definitely a decree that, you know, really hit home for me, deepened into my heart. And this decree, 7 zeros, number 225, re safety, security, care, protection, and funding of the Kingdom of Canada's children and youth in care homes, foster homes, local communities, and authorities, federal, provincial, territorial, city. This is such a huge decree, and I'd like you to speak to the we the people about number 225.
So this, thank you, Your Excellency. This royal decree really encompasses the protection, care, security, and safety of our children. We have had number 1. So I'll start with this one here. Safety in all manners to the safety of a child or children must first and foremost be evaluated by independent third party to determine the level of care. Now, as much as we would like to trust that the parents, the mom and dads of our children are capable of raising and caring for their children, we have to go further than that. That sentiment gives us the warm and fuzzy feeling. But when you look deeper, and before we delve into this further, I would like everyone to have the understanding that our children are the future of our country. And we have parents who have had children, not all, but some, who have had children because they were impregnated by their youth partner. So you now have children, underage youth in this case, some are preteens, having children because it's the new vogue, shall we say. It's the new popular thing to do, as if they are eating or choosing to have an ice cream for dinner. Failing to recognize, of course, due to lack of guidance from the parents and the community and the society as a whole, that having a child is not a bowl of, it's not like a bowl of rice that you, when you try to eat it, and it's hot, you can spit it out. You are creating another being that is completely dependent on the parents or the adults around them. And when the adults or the parents cannot, they themselves, take care of themselves, I'm referring now to those who have drug addiction, gambling addiction, alcoholism, even those who have anger management issues. And those who do not have the financial means to support another being, another life. Maybe not through the fault of their own, but nonetheless, we have to consider all these aspects and more before we bring another being to this star system. And so this one is really not geared towards the likes and dislikes of our parents and grandparents and or is it worried about hurting the feelings of the parents or grandparents or the society as a whole? It is not. This is not what this is all about. This is about protecting the children of the Kingdom of Canada. Because each child belongs to the kingdom and is part of the kingdom, is part of that energy as a whole. And so this also is not worried about a particular group of people or a particular group of communities or holding a specific political stance. No, this is not all about that. This is about the children. And if you are a community, if you are a parent, if you are a city, a village, a foster mother, a foster father, a foster agency, whomsoever you are, you will be held to account by this royal decree. And it won't matter what your political stance or whatever belief system has been imparted on you by your ancestors. If you have previous records of alcoholism in your community, violence, drug addiction, prostitution, drug use, and any forms of addiction. And on top of that, you do not have a stable, proven care facilities for children and services. If you do not have those established and proven that you are able as a community or a home that you are able to protect and care and secure the children or a child. Number one, you will not have under this royal decree. You can cry until the cows come home, but you will not be given the guardianship or the authority to bring to your home or your community children who are requiring care and services. I don't care what political stance you have or how your ancestors imparted with you specific way of raising children. If you have issues with illegal drugs, as I said, illegal drugs, violence, alcoholism, gambling, any type of issues that can harm a child's well-being, regardless of how minute it may be, you will not have that privilege to raise a child, be it in your home or your community or your village, your reserve, or whatever, your city. That's the major change. It is irrelevant whether you are a blood related. We will not hand over to you children requiring care simply because they're blood related to you. Meanwhile, you are a pedophile or a drug addict or a violent individual who cannot control your anger. Or you're one of those people who goes around and drives around and shows finger to their neighbors. Or you're one of those individuals who, the minute you get your money, you go to the liquor store and buy 24 cases of beer. It won't matter whether you're blood related to that child, because you're affecting how you raise that child affects the energy and the vibration of the entire kingdom. And you harm that one child, you harm the peace and prosperity, and as I said, the energy of the entire kingdom. That's the major change. And if you are one of those individuals who keep having children because the government gave you money, think again. Because I'm aware, not all of you, but many of you have used having children, spitting them out like a machine. Every 9 months you have a new baby because the government gave you money. That gig is up. And for those of you who have used the children as your cash cow, your gig is up. Those private homes, I'm not saying all, but many have used the children, fostering of children. Meanwhile, while you kept the money that was given to you by the old system, the government, you had children. You had forced children to clean private buildings, telling them that their support, financial support, had been cut off. And so the children had to go out and make money, paying you money on top of the money that was already given to you by the old system government, by the corporation government, to take care of the children. I'm aware of you. Your gig is up. You continue doing that gig and you will end up nowhere. You need to find another business venture. But if you know what's good for your health, I would change business venture or change industry. because that way of making money is over. And this is why a part of this royal decree gave instructions to the respective ministries involved to create a Kingdom of Canada's children's home in every city and every town where there is a need. And that Kingdom of Canada's children's home will be funded by the We the People and protected by the We the People. And this also part of this royal decree, those who are, and this is key, those who are fostering, the foster parents, there used to be a blanketed immunity for the foster parents, whereby if a child was harmed under their care, something about they couldn't be sued or held liable for what has happened because the agency, the old system, the corporation system contracted them to do that work. So it was a kakistocracy of BS, the chain of simply getting rid of the children, handing it over to someone who would take them instead of actually caring for them. So no one was held to account as to the true care and protection and safety of the children. Many children were placed in pedophiles' homes, sexual abuser, sex addicts' homes, and pedophiles. And not long ago, QRTRV News covered a story of a child that was killed in the hands of the stepfather. I think Dante was the name of the child, and his mother. I think the backstory of that was Dante, the child, was in foster care and was removed from foster care and handed over to a mother who was a drug addict or something to that effect, either alcoholic or a drug addict. And the child was physically harmed and unfortunately was killed. I think that's the couple that was sentenced 15 years to 15 years in prison for having killed that boy. Yes, so that's the example. That's what I was alluding to. That just because they're blood related, it doesn't mean that the individual, the mother or the father, the blood related parent, is capable of taking care of the child. And here's another one. To publish, this is number 16 of the royal decree, to publish the names of all individuals involved who committed crimes against children. Many of you will notice that some, as far as 1970s, who committed crime against or crimes against children are now being brought forth to the front and being tried. What else was and also another thing with the children, the foster parents, foster parenting. Another two key elements, in fact, of this royal decree is the establishment of a hotline for the children where they can direct dial or speed dial a number if they are being harmed before they are being harmed by someone who's supposed to care for them. So number one, they'll be given, those who are being placed in foster care or being given back to their those cell phones are pre-programmed for a speed dial to a hotline where children can call for immediate help 24 hours a day, for immediate extraction, to search for them for wherever they are located, and to be removed from that home or area. Another hotline to be established is for the children and youth to be able to send anonymous text message to report abuse. And you will say, Queen Romana, we already have that. Not this type. This one, you see, the children will be educated before that. They'll be educated that it is not for them to use for fun, that their actions will have ramifications, that that hotline is a matter of life and death for the other children. Because if they misuse that hotline and the investigators are sent on a ghost chase, instead of using those resources to go help another child, imagine the karma the child incurs, the energetic karma. So those children who are going around about bullying other children, harassing other children, I can assure you, you are accumulating karma, and I would tell you to stop immediately. Because that energy is going to boomerang onto you 1,000 times. And that goes the same for adults. And it's not going to be pretty. Because Lady Karma, as they say, has no bias and knows your address. So that's another key there for the children to report, to send via text message, to report any crimes relating to either to them or someone they witness. Okay.
And what I really love about this royal decree, Queen Romana, is the fact that every child will have a place to go no matter what, because in every town, village, city, province, territory, there will always be a Kingdom of Canada's children home for them to go to, where they're not going to hear, well, you have no place to go, you're nobody, you're this. That's all gone. There's always going to be a place for our VIPs of all VIPs. So thank you for this decree. So massive.
You're welcome. Because, as I said, what happens to each child affects the energy, the vibration of our kingdom. Many of you may not have the understanding yet, but you will know once you learn how energies work. You will know that what you do to others, every decision you make, takes you either up or down in your level of vibration.
Thank you. There's so much more we could share on that, but I would like us to move forward to our next segment, if you don't mind, Your Royal Majesty. And then after this segment, we're actually going to be taking a break because we do have more valuable information. And I do know we have some videos to share with we the people. I mean, there's a lot, but this is so important. And with you being Queen of the World, having your time, is going to become less and less. We want to maximize on each and every moment. So
Yes, and before we go to the other segment, I
Yes.
would like to assure our ancestors and those who have any kinds of impairments. There was a request coming from our question and answer page
for the seniors, yes.
for to create the same this royal decree number 070225 for the children, to have this royal decree also extended to our seniors, our ancestors, and anyone who is who has some sort of physical impairments or any kinds of impairments, to prevent the abuse. So the answer to that is yes. Perhaps as soon as I'm finished with our our Coffee with the Queen segment today, I will work on the seniors, this royal decree, revise it. There's not a lot to revise, really, but it'll be also catered towards our seniors and anyone who has any types of impairments, to prevent that abuse. So the answer to that request is yes.
Thank you. And I had that written down in my notes. So thank you so much for you bringing that forth. And we'll make certain you have the time to get that number 226 perhaps and 227 done. So again, thank you, Royal Majesty. So our next segment that we're going to be we're delving into, is on the prevention and elimination of.
Oh, yes.
So we're going to be speaking on these very important topics, and that is illegal drugs, the tolerance for illegal drugs, traffickers, manufacturers, zero.
Correct, yes. And it's self-explanatory. The previous royal decrees I have issued. Again, when I write my royal decrees, it's prevention. It's not a reactive solution. It's a prevention. Now, there's one suggestion that I will make, is that even though the royal decrees are written in a preventative measures, I suggest very strongly that you do not push and you do not cross that line, because they are not only prevention, they are ramification also. So they're there so that they prevent you from, shall we say, acting on impulse and committing a particular crime. So that's prevention, because you know already in your mind that there are specific measures that will be taken against a particular actions, right? I.e. the illegal drugs. Zero tolerance from me and the kingdom, zero. You see, with regards to the illegal drugs, okay, I will explain to you why I have zero tolerance for that, and any society should have zero tolerance for illegal drugs. Let's take, for example, you have a mother or a father, okay, has two children, right? Two children.
Well, you can use
This
mine.
one. Thank you. Or in this case here, we'll use the smaller one because it's taking. So this is a father that is the single income producer in the family. Has a wife, right? Has a wife. Okay. So this is the household here, mom and dad. But only dad is making money to support the entire family. And they have two children. Okay. Two children here. And then you have a drug dealer over here. Okay. or what you have here is that harm reduction BS, excuse the language, okay, that subliminally entice people to try recreational drugs. Because if they cannot afford it, there's a program that will use we the people's money to go out and buy and give it for free. That's what the harm reduction program, that was harm reduction program. So now you've got a dad is now attached to this drug dealer here that is supplying the drugs. This guy is in business. He doesn't give iota what happens to the child here, and the wife here. None. He's in business. He doesn't care what happens to that whole family. But with the dad now who's drug addicted, and he was the only one making all that money for the family, to support the family, he is now spending, for example, the groceries money for 1 week into his drug addiction. So 1 week now, the children have no food, and the wife. And that cycle goes on and on and on, because this guy now, the dad, is drug addicted and he cannot control his addiction. And his main concern now is only to get the next hit. Over here, they probably have a car, right? So that's the wife, that's the husband who's drug addicted. You have 2 children, and they have an asset here, for example, a car that the wife uses to take the children to school, to wherever, and to do grocery shopping. But now, because the dad is drug addicted and his work is now affected because he's drug addict, he cannot function fully at work, his boss fired him. Now unemployed. Okay, they have a small savings, so he's going to tap into that savings and start using that to buy money, to buy the drugs. Next month, all the savings gone. Then what's the next thing he's going to go after? A car. If they have a car, he's going to sell that car. Remember now, because he's drug addict, he doesn't care. It's beyond him because he cannot control his addiction. He's no longer thinking about what's best for his children and his wife. He's now preoccupied in terms of satisfying that addiction. Where is the next hit? How he's going to get it? How he's going to pay for the next whatever, smoke, or depending on what illegal drugs he's using, cocaine or what have you, right? So now he sells the car. But remember what that car meant. It meant that the children could go anywhere where, with their mom, they can go grocery shopping, they could go to field trip, go to hospital, go to school, right? Go visit grandma or whoever. Now there's no more car, because that car now, right, has been sold to satisfy the drug addiction. What happens to the children here and the wife? Not only is that family now suffering financially, they are suffering. Who knows if the drug addict is violent when he's not drunk, when he's high, yeah, right? Could be physically hurting the children and the mom. So now you have physical abuse as a result of that addiction. And then you have the mental and psychological abuse from that drug addict. Meanwhile, this drug addict here, this drug dealer here is making money, consistent revenue from this guy, sales revenue to his business. Now, you have a father here who is now destroyed, not only mentally, but his body is being eaten by that poison. Every time he has that hit, he has that consumption of illegal drugs, poison. Now you have someone who's not only drug addict, who's not only violent, abusive, you now have someone who's sick. And you have a wife here who has to worry about the 2 children and the husband who is now sick and who is drug addict. And sometimes, if the money here, for example, if all the assets they have has been sold, so they usually start with the car, whatever's available, then the last one is the house. So let's say that the house has been fully paid. So there's that sense of security a little bit. They can still live in that house. But then the drug addict says, we're now going to go sell this house. In this case, he's not even going to say anything to his wife. He will just say to this guy here, the drug dealer, and say, give me more of those drugs and I'll use my house as a payment. You can take my house if I can't pay for it. So the drug dealer says, okay, no problem, I'll supply you more of the illegal drugs. And there comes a point when the debt is collected by this guy and say, hey, you owe me so many thousands from this drug. I'm going to take over your house. Now, you, from a solid family, a stable family, you now have destroyed. This drug dealer has now destroyed not only this drug addict here, but the children's future. The foundation of the family is broken. The wife. That's what's happened here. That's why I have zero tolerance for illegal drugs. So, and no society should ever tolerate people making money killing other people. Because eventually this guy here who's drug addict, who has swallowed poison for who knows how long, this guy now is either brain dead, the poison, the illegal drugs is eating him away. He's no longer a productive member of our society. But he's not the only one affected, the 2 children and the wife. And so for every drug addict that you see out in the street, imagine how many, ask yourselves, this drug addict, how many, if he has any children or she has any children, how many are affected? What about their parents? Because sometimes if they are not married, guess what? Who's the victim? The parents. If they are teenagers, drug addict, they have no money to support their addiction, they go to mom and dad. And depending on who the mom and dad is, to save face in their high society status, they will pay for the drug addiction, they'll give money to this child. And eventually that money, it could be their inheritance, is gone. And when that money is finished, the child goes, can we sell the car? Can we sell the boat? Can we sell that cabin somewhere? Until all of the resources is finished. Until the house is finished, until the land is finished. That's I've just given you a visual of how damaging illegal drugs is, and even not illegal drugs, even those drugs that have been prescribed. And they're addicted. You have so many people in painkillers, addicted to painkillers. And eventually, they die. but not as expensive of compared to illegal drugs. That's the same situation with someone who's addicted or has gambling addiction. The same. They do the same thing. They destroy the entire family, not just the individual. So now you have children here and a wife that has a sick husband, abusive, and zero money. So this guy here who had made all the money, just all of a sudden, yeah, destroyed these two people here. Meanwhile, his or her business there, because I can tell you there are also drug dealers who are feminine, not just the masculine. So that's the effect in our society as a whole. That's why I have zero tolerance for that. And as I said, no country, no society should ever tolerate the poisoning of another being, because it affects not just that one, but everyone he or she is connected to. That's your illegal drugs. Zero tolerance.
Incredible. Incredible. And thank you for that royal decree. So significant. All right. Prevention and elimination of corruption.
Oh boy.
Tolerance for corruption, zero.
Again, corruption, huh? Was that Kuwait recently? The monarch of Kuwait, I think? Or another Gulf country in the Middle East, who dissolved the parliament because the parliament that was run democratically had been infiltrated and, of course, invaded all the way to the very top of the structure. Financially, politically, the system was infiltrated using democracy. If you are keen on finding out which country it was, try researching it. And it said their reason for shutting the parliament was to also study the effects of democracy. Because what happens is that corruption and those who wanted to infiltrate, they used their democratic system to put their puppets there, run by their handlers. And once they got elected, they continued the narrative and the intention and the plans of their handlers. This is why it doesn't matter who you choose. They were all working for the same entity. That's what democracy was used for. Look around when you look at democratic countries, those who use that system. What has it done to the people? Other than take away the sovereignty, the wealth of the people, while they continued to create their narrative and have every, 4 years, 5 years, depending on what system they were using, they would have this masquerades of elections, giving the impression that the people were in control. But their candidates were already chosen. It didn't matter who it was. that didn't matter which side won. They controlled both sides. So the only narrative, the only plan that continued were the plans of the handlers, those puppeteers at the top, not the we the people's plan or agenda. But those politicians would tell you that they're working for you and they'll do that and they'll do this. But the minute they go into the parliament, or they went into the parliament, they were whipped by their political whips and everybody had to toe the line. And whose line was it? The puppeteers and their handlers' line. Does it surprise you that when you go to Western world, who profess to be all advanced, and yet you look at the potholes along the highways and how they have taken away the dignity, honor, and respect from the we the people, while every so many years they would promise heaven and earth to fix something, like in the old system. How many decades were they talking about the clean drinking water?
Right.
Until now, I think we have people in certain parts of the country, of the kingdom, who are still in boiling water, and they were not even in reserves.
Yeah, boiling advisories, yes.
Mm-hmm. And then you have potholes everywhere you go. If you look at their priorities, they were sending billions, hundreds of millions, if not billions, overseas, so that certain numbers of people in particular uniform could fire the missiles. Well, some of those missiles or bombs are 5 million each. And they just fire, they just detonate that as if it's like a candy worth. But each one, depending on the range, depending on what it's made of, would cost you millions. And yet they cannot afford to house everyone in the kingdom. They cannot afford to fix the highways. Why? Because fixing your highways, spending that money in fixing your highways and giving you homes, those who needed homes, will not advance their hegemony interests to dominate another country or another territory or another continent. That's what your corruption was all about. Does it wonder why the society outside the Western world, the Western hemisphere, do not trust the West anymore? Mm-hmm. And does it make you wonder, or does it have to make you wonder why the world outside the Western world is no longer lending money to the West? And those who have had money in the West are pulling it out of the West? Simple. Why would you continue to invest in a country that uses your money to develop missiles to bomb your own people? Let that sink in. Why would you loan money to a country that uses that money to build bombs to bomb you, the lender? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And your neighbors, your neighboring countries. So the